Hey folks, today we're exploring the history of the Kawarau Falls and the gold mining dam that wasn't. The Kawarau Falls at the outlet to Lake Wakatipu is located in Frankton in the Queenstown Lakes District, and it forms the head of the mighty Kawarau River. Lake Wakatipu, New Zealand's third largest lake, is fed by 5 rivers. The Kawarau River itself is fed by other rivers and streams, including the famous Shotover River at a place known as the Confluence. It then joins the Clutha River at Cromwell and flows out to sea at Molyneux Bay. Kawarau is the Māori name meaning many shrubs. Kawarau Falls is the location of the State Highway 6 bridge, completed in 2018, and the Kawarau Falls Dam, completed in 1926. To the casual observer, the dam is often mistaken for a bridge, as for many years State Highway 6 passed over it before it became a pedestrian cycleway crossing. However, it was actually built as a mining dam, although an unusual one. Before we discuss the dam's history, it is interesting to look back at the Kawarau Falls when the area was first settled. These first 2 images show the Robinson farm taken in the 1870s and 1880s. The building shown is the Brunswick Mill, established by J.W. Robinson and Bendix Hallenstein to provide flour during the Otago gold rush. Construction of the 4-storey wooden mill commenced in 1866, and the mill was opened in July 1867. The flour mill was given its name as Robinson was from Brunswick, Canada, and Hallenstein was from Brunswick in Germany. The mill was powered by a 5-metre diameter, 4-metre wide water wheel that operated with only 45 centimetres of water. In the 1870s, a small turbine comprising an early version of a Francis turbine was installed to provide electricity and to later pump water to the nearby hospital. In 1896, water levels were so low that the mill ceased production and was never deemed profitable to resume operation again. The mill was demolished in the early 20th century, and all that remains is the turbine salvaged from the river in 1956 and now mounted on the northern entry of the Kawarau Falls Dam. Prior to the mill, the site was also that of a centuries-old Ngāti Mamaui Māori pā, and several greenstone chisels, axe heads and stone implements were found a metre below the surface when excavations for the mill's foundations began. The story of the Kawarau Falls starts with the formation of the Kawarau Gold Mining Company in 1922 to construct the dam. The objective of the dam was to temporarily shut off Lake Wakatipu's outflow to dry up more or less the riverbed down the Kawarau River so that the treasure trove of gold supposedly located in the bed could be recovered. By agreement with the government, the dam crest was to be a bridge to take the main highway south. The dam construction required 11 concrete piers to be built, each 2.1 metres thick and 15.5 metres long. The first blasting shots into the rock were made on the 22nd of November 1924. To build the piers, it was necessary to exclude the river flow by first constructing cofferdams around them. It was initially thought the dam would take several months to construct, but most of the work was done with physically demanding manual labour, and it would actually take nearly 2 years to complete. The building of the Kawarau Falls Dam certainly had its challenges. This was demonstrated over a 20-day period in December 1925, when the lake rose 2.3 metres. This early footage further shows the physical labour required with the lifting of rocks and supplies using manually operated cranes. It is also important to reflect on the living conditions of the workers who lived nearby in a construction camp comprising huts with canvas-covered roofs. They suffered the cold of winter with frequent snowfalls, and then the contrasting hot central Otago days of summer. One of the key construction tasks was the construction of piers 6 and 7 near the centre of the dam. These required concrete arch cofferdams to be constructed, which was first done by placing gabions in 6 metres of water that was flowing at 1.8 metres per second. This early footage, taken in 1926, shows the latter stages of construction. With the dam now largely complete, one of the last remaining jobs was to remove the concrete arch cofferdams by blasting, as shown by this footage. The 10 steel gates that fitted between the piers were 12.2 metres long and 2.3 metres high. The gates were of a stony roller design, an arrangement where the water load on the gate is transferred to the piers by a set of rollers held in a steel frame. When the gate is lifted or lowered, the roller assembly moves independently from the gate, thereby minimising the frictional resistance. With construction complete, hundreds of people from all over the district attended the opening ceremony on the 30th of August 1926. They lined the bridge deck to hear the speeches and watch the closing of the gates. A steam whistle was blown at 11 a.m. and the gate winches were put into action, lowering the gates in less than a minute to the cheers of all those attending. Hundreds more who staked their claims along the banks of the Kawarau River waited eagerly for the water to fall once the massive gates were closed. But the river level only dropped a metre or so, not enough to uncover significant amounts of gold-bearing rock. The company had failed to take into account the inflow from the Shotover River. By the time the gates were raised again, 10 days later, the Kawarau Gold Mining Company shares had lost more than half their value and the project was deemed a failure. The Kawarau Falls Dam was closed temporarily several more times, but gold mining returns were modest. In the winter of 1932, during the height of the Great Depression, unemployed fossickers were reported to have won gold worth $285,000 in today's dollars. Following the failure of the enterprise, the dam became the property of the Crown, and its one traffic lane became a vital connection between Queenstown and Southland. For a brief period, it was occasionally used to control the river flow for hydroelectric purposes. The main use was during times of high rainfall to limit the outflow of Lake Wakatipu and reduce the seriousness of flooding downstream. Hand winches on the deck were the only way to raise and lower the gates, although in later years a low-speed drill motor was used to drive the gearing. Well under the control of the New Zealand Electricity Department, one of the last operations of the dam occurred in the late 1980s, ironically for the purposes of gold mining. This was when company L&M Mining requested that the river be lowered so that they could walk their giant Hitachi excavator to their gold mining claim opposite Scotland's Point near Cromwell. The operation was successful, with the water level only just reaching the top of the tracks. Before we conclude the history of the Kawarau Falls Dam, it is interesting to take a brief look at the very different construction techniques used for the new bridge some 90 plus years later. With rapid population and tourism growth in Queenstown, the single traffic lane across the Kawarau Falls Dam often resulted in large queues. The need for an improved transport link with predictable journey times resulted in the government approving the construction of a new sweeping two-lane bridge. In 2016, the contract was awarded to McConnell Dow, and these time-lapse snippets from the New Zealand Transport Agency show the construction process. Trees were felled and abutments were built, piles were drilled and temporary decks constructed for the main cranes. New permanent piers were then built and eventually the 8 bridge decks were laid. The temporary bridge decks were then removed. The new bridge, 250 metres long and 14 metres wide, was built at a cost of $21 to $22 million. This can be compared with the Kawarau Falls Dam that cost $10 million in today's currency. On the 10th of May 2018, the traffic jam pain for locals and tourists disappeared when the new bridge was opened. Well folks, that concludes the short history of the Kawarau Falls. Hopefully the next time you drive, bike or walk across the falls, you can reflect on the dam that failed in its original gold mining role, but instead went on, more importantly, to become a vital transportation link between Queenstown and Southland.